Hi all and welcome to the Sleep Week for Make a Change. I just want to start off by saying that this session will look at the lifestyle factors which can affect sleep, so we're not discussing any kind of long-term chronic sleep problems such as insomnia. If that is something that you would like to have a chat about or like further support on, please speak to myself or Sam. This session will focus more on what you can do throughout the day to help you get a good quality night's sleep. So as with a healthy diet, being active, watching what we drink, sleep's another important component of a healthy, balanced lifestyle. Sleep's got many functions within the body, and more so related to this programme, it's got an important role in weight loss and also weight management. Having a poor night's sleep is linked with craving kind of high energy, calorie dense foods the next day, and it also affects the hormones responsible for appetite. So while sleep's a very natural thing, it doesn't come naturally to us all, unfortunately, and this can lead to us becoming stressed about sleep, which has the exact opposite effect and then reduces our ability to fall asleep. So we'll discuss a little bit more on that later. But before we go on to the lifestyle factors, I just want to mention a little bit about some common sleep messages. So firstly, we get the message of 8 hours a night, and to be honest, this is slightly dubious. And if we're constantly trying to achieve 8 hours a night, this is probably adding to our sleep woes. So there's conflicting evidence on the 8 hour a night message, and in fact most people sleep less than this. So if you don't currently get 8 hours a night, then don't set this as your goal. Remember, small changes make a big difference. So similar to the other messages in Make a Change, the key thing is finding out what's right for you and then setting a small goal round about that to help you achieve it. Plus, as I said, this session is about the lifestyle factors, so it would be better to set a lifestyle goal round about sleep itself rather than setting a sleep target as a goal. Also, if you don't sleep well, try not to stress about it. Focus on rest rather than sleep. So evidence also tells us that good quality rest is very important and also very beneficial for our health. This does not just mean lying in front of the TV though. It's an active process that you have to engage in. So it could be lying just by your eyes shut in a quiet room. It could be trying to engage in some kind of mindfulness exercise or an activity that helps you relax. So some active rest is just as important as sleep. Also, if we find ourselves waking up during the night, then try not to lie there being frustrated and clock watching. In fact, it can be a good idea to remove the clocks or even turn the clocks around. But it is best to get out of bed, kind of potter around the house for a wee while. As you begin to feel tired again, then maybe go back to bed and then hopefully fall back asleep. As mentioned though, this session is much more about the lifestyle factors that can affect sleep and what we do throughout the day. So the process of a good night's sleep tends to actually start from when we wake up in the morning rather than starting from when we just go to bed, and I think that's something people often forget. So whilst we're going to talk about the lifestyle factors, I'm going to try and use an analogy of a bank. So think of each morning as opening up a new account, and you have a new starting balance, and what we do throughout the day is either going to credit or debit the account. The more credits we make throughout the day, the greater chance there is of a good night's sleep. The more debits will obviously have the opposite effect. So the four main things we're going to look at are diet, caffeine, activity and stress, and we're also going to touch a little bit on screen time. So let's start with diet. So most of the good news is, most of the messages around diet are very similar to the messages that we've already discussed on the Make a Change programme. So we know that diets high in processed sugary foods would act as a debit and would actually reduce our ability to get a good night's sleep. Whereas what we want to encourage you is foods that are high in fibre, so all the whole grain stuff that we mentioned in week 2, diets high in fruit and veg are another important contributing factor to that. Protein is another one. So all these things we've talked about and all make up a kind of healthy balanced diet, and these would help to credit our sleep account. Another thing that we sometimes don't think about is eating regular meals. So that's something that can be an important factor in helping get a good night's rest. There's a link to kind of the body's natural circadian rhythms. If we eat throughout the day in regular patterns, it kind of sets a routine for the body and lets us know when we're going to get near bedtime. The important thing though is just to recognise that we only eat whilst we're hungry, as we've also discussed on the programme, and if we're eating certainly late at night, there's nothing wrong with that. You might want to avoid eating maybe an hour or so before bed, and again try and focus the meal round about kind of like your proteins, your whole grains. Would be a good option. Something like Greek yogurt. It's quite high in protein, so that would be a good choice. Linked to our diet is also our caffeine intake. Now, caffeine is probably one of the biggest debits that we have. So you'll see caffeine is obviously tea, coffee, chocolate, also fizzy drinks, but also chocolate flavoured items, so things like chocolate biscuits, chocolate ice cream, anything like that will all contain kind of trace amounts of caffeine, and these are always many little debits on top of the tea and coffee, which are probably the main contributing. So we know caffeine's an actual stimulant, and now that basically blocks the release of chemicals that help us to get to sleep. And one of the key things about caffeine is it actually stays in our system for a lot longer than what we think. So they think maybe roughly to 6 to 8 hours after we've consumed caffeine, it will still be in our system. So if we're having a cup of coffee, a cup of tea about 5 o'clock at night or in the evening, it's still going to be in our system when we're trying to drop off to sleep at night. So you might find you get to sleep, but because the caffeine's still in the system, you might find you wake up. So trying to limit caffeine intake, obviously, and that can be increasing our water, just switching to decaf, or try herbal teas maybe even in the evening, is a good way to try and reduce our overall intake of caffeine. So maybe it can be worth setting a bit of goal round about this. So it might be setting yourself a goal of after 12 o'clock, maybe having no caffeine in the afternoon. So just something to think about. The next lifestyle factor we're going to mention is physical activity, and how physical activity can be linked to a good night's sleep. So whilst it doesn't impact on sleep directly, it does influence the systems which help us to get a good night's sleep. So the one thing I would say about this is you want to limit exercise kind of getting too near bedtime. So a few hours before, you might want to not do anything too active. So build it up throughout the day, as we talk about anyway throughout the programme. So moderate exercise is what we're looking for as well, so activity that just gets the heart rate up a little bit and gets us moving. So it helps us by basically controlling two main things. One is cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So the more stressed we are, the higher the levels of cortisol in the body, and again that can affect our sleep pattern. Regular physical activity actually helps to manage cortisol, reduces it, kind of burns it off, so to speak. So that's a good way of managing cortisol levels. And then the other thing about exercise is it helps to build up the levels of adenosine in the body. And adenosine is one of the main triggers that lets us know that we're getting near bedtime and getting ready for sleep. So the more active we are, the more energy we burn, and the more adenosine builds up over the course of a day. So again, a really important way of helping improve our sleep quality is reducing cortisol, which would be a debit, or building up the levels of adenosine just by being a bit more active throughout the day. The other good thing with being active throughout the day is if we've got a tendency to nap. Napping obviously steals credits from the account. So again, that account is quite a big debit. So if we are more active, we're less likely to be sitting about, which means the tendency to nod off or drop off is reduced. So there's a bit of a knock-on effect just by being a wee bit more active. And as we said, it's not always about going out for a big walk, just reducing your sedentary time. So finding little bits in the house just to kind of potter around are all good ways to do this. So we'll add being physically active into our credit. So the next one we're going to look at is stress. Stress in relation to the sleep. Again, we've mentioned cortisol, so that's one of the big things. That's a stress hormone. So the more stressed we are, the more we have of this in the body. And the difficult thing about stress is a lot of stress is actually a healthy thing. So it is a good response, but it's when it gets to chronic levels, chronic exposure of stress, that's when it begins to have a negative effect. So we want to try and manage our stress as much as possible. And this can be challenging because how stress affects me, how it affects Sam, or how it affects you guys is going to be very different. So it's maybe just having a think a little bit about how we can manage our own stress levels and what we can do. Again, we know this type of diet actually exasperates these kind of things as well, so maybe reducing sugary foods and caffeine is another knock-on effect for helping manage stress levels. So a wee tactic that some people do is maybe before they go to bed at night is even just writing down some of the kind of worries or some of the kind of thoughts, and that can just help to get them out of the head. They kind of keep a clear head, so that can be a good beneficial way of just helping managing stress. Another way people sometimes cope with stress is through alcohol, which unfortunately doesn't really help us. It might feel like it does, it might help us relax, it might feel like it helps us get to sleep, but unfortunately it actually inhibits a deep sleep, so we don't get as a good quality sleep when we consume alcohol. So there is a longer time negative impact of consuming alcohol before bedtime, so it's not a great coping mechanism. So it's maybe looking at healthier ways to cope with the stress. Again, it's not something we particularly cover on Make a Change, so if you do want further information or further support, please speak to myself or Sam and we can put you in touch with a couple of services that can help you with managing stress. The last thing I'm just going to touch on is screen time. It seems to be the screen time's forever increasing at the moment. So again, screen time can have a real impact on our sleep. So it's something that we want to try and manage as much as possible. It's very difficult to avoid it these days, but I guess maybe just trying to set some guidelines around about screen time. Might be trying to reduce your phone use, your computer use, TV watching, maybe an hour or so before bed. So it might be before you go to bed, rather than sitting watching TV, it might be you do the final wee tidy up of the evening and then go into bed and listen to the radio or read a book or something like that. So again, we can only make suggestions. Just think about your own situations and what you can maybe do to try and reduce your screen time. So as always with Make a Change, it's just about giving you guys the information and then having a wee think about how it relates to you and your lifestyle. Have a think about the credits, have a think about the debits and what we can do to either increase the amount of credits that we make or increase the amount of debits or reduce the amount of debits. What's quite good though, as you can see, is if we start making changes in the debit, a lot of them will have a knock-on effect into the credit. So again, have a wee think, set some goals, keep in touch. If there's anything we can do before session next week, please just let us know. But apart from that, just take care and have a good week. Thanks.